Milton's story after the break. The family didn't have much to do with Milton's mother after she rejected the idea of having him adopted, but he, just 6 years old at the time, was distracted by other things. He liked to look out of his window at the US military camp. Seeing all those black soldiers would make him think of his dad. He was just beginning to understand how he had come about and how his mother got by.
My mother and I moved into a studio apartment right across the street from the front gates of Camp Market, large military base. And the front gates of that military base was just right at the mouth of the red light district that my mother and I lived at the end of it. So the red light district was this kind of little valley that I got a t-shirt on. And we were at the end, in between where the mouth of that valley, across the street from the front gates of the military base. And my mother worked in an all-black club. With this ball in the alley, and I also remember at least a time or two that I'm a child in that studio apartment, and my mother's in the bed with the band.
You in a separate space, but you in the apartment?
No, it's a studio apartment. So it's just one room that now it was late night. I was supposed to be asleep. Literally, I did a lot of that activity happened at the club. And you're like, oh, I think this might have been like an abortion type situation. I should be fast asleep, but it was rare that I was. My mother and the soldier, they come in and they get back to me and this way. And then they get into bed and I'm, peeping at everything that they're doing, and I'm sleeping. And then they end up being together, having sex, and I just remember kind of being just in a weird position because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if I was being attacked. Some of the sounds that she was making, I'm like, man, that was the sound she's being attacked. So I didn't know if I was supposed to jump on this guy's back and get him off of my mother, or if I should just kind of continue on, feeling like I'm sleeping. And that's what I did. I found it difficult to sleep that night because of the way that I was kind of torn. And I remember the next day. Getting up in the early hours of the morning. The soldiers come, my mother's sleeping. I went up to the hills, to the cemetery in the hills, and I just spent hours just kind of looking down, trying to figure out what happened last night, what it all meant. But also, I think there was a part of my foundation was like shaking because the introduction of a man when it was just me and my mother, as this unit, and it was kind of traumatic for me because it shook the foundation that I had, which was the foundation was me and mom. Mom loves me, nothing else matters, but now there's another guy involved.
Milton still didn't have any friends of his own age, so he would hang out with the young woman who worked for his mother. She'd become the madam by then. When she was home, she was strict. But the fact is, she was busy a lot of the time, often well into the evening, and liked doing these mothering duties, passed to the woman who ran the cafe downstairs. If he got hungry, he could go there to eat. But one day, he got his hands on the food of the gods. Life was never the same again.
bunch of snacks for me. So I wouldn't doubt it if that soldier is the same kind of boyfriend that my mother had. The same guy that I saw in the bed. I wouldn't doubt it. Who I call Mr. Jones, kind of in my memory. And I remember this day he brought back Oreos in it. And my mother's showing me how to eat these Oreos and how he takes a cookie and splits it into, twists it off, and then he licks off the white filling. And then I do the same, and I have that sugar and that superior American treat, and I'm just like, oh my God, my life is so good. And then you break out the Coca-Cola, and I'm drinking the Cola. That day when Mr. Jones and my mother gave me those snacks, they wanted to spend some time alone doing what they do. So they kind of pushed me away from the house. And so then I go outside breakfasted with some Big Newtons and some Oreos. And so I was this kid that was rejected for not having any value for my blackness. But now I have this access to all these American goods. So it's like, now like I kind of turned into the rich kid. You know, everybody gets a piece of me. You know? It completely changed my life. Because I was black, all the black soldiers would give me money. Because that's one of the biggest ways that we would make money, by begging soldiers as they come from the gates into the Red Light District. But I was the kid that received all the big money, the dollar bills, and not just change. And so I was a big hunter of money. I was a kid that I can fight. I was able to fight in the gangs and do well. I was able to steal and did so, with a whole lot of courage. And, like I said, I had all these American treats.
Stealing, begging, and fighting, they're not really big things, are they?
Well, it's little kid things in some cultures, but yeah, to your point, these are kind of things, but realizing this is street food, this is how it's going to be.
The soldiers Milton and his friends passed in the street had a word for kids like them.
Yeah, so the term itself was just synonymous with beef. Be careful of these little sneaky boys. You gotta make sure you got all your stuff on you, because they'll come up to you and steal.
Were you happy to be a sneaky boy?
Was I happy to be a sneaky boy? I don't think I had any feelings about being a sneaky boy per se, but I was happy to be out there on the streets, with friends. But I also had back then a compulsion to steal.
How would stealing make you feel?
I thought about this. Like, what is it about? Because I'm not a psychiatrist or anything. I don't know how this works. But for me, as I look back on this notion of me stealing, is I didn't have anything. I had my mother. That was it. It's not like my mother was giving me a bunch of toys and stuff. That just wasn't the case. In fact, I don't remember toys, except the toys that I made my hand. Be able to have some things, but me going into a toy store to steal something meant that I had some things, because, I guess I never really thought that my circumstances warranted me having the things that I want.
Did your mum know what you were up to? It's quite an unusual relationship. You've got your mum who's doing sex work, and she probably knows that you're not talking about it, and then you're out filming, and she probably knows, but you're not talking about it. And you're kind of living together, desperately close, and yet there's something not quite usual, is there?
No, it's far from usual.
One of the other very grown-up things you were doing at the age of 6, maybe 7, was occasionally your mum would leave you in charge of 2 very small children, 3-year-old and a
Yes.
1-year-old.
The little girl's name is Edie, the 3-year-old, and the 1-year-old is Jose. Both are black and Korean. Edie is actually my sister, but then there's some conflicting information on whether or not Jose is actually my brother. Conflicting info.
There are lots of questions there are simply no answers for. In some respects, Milton knew more about life than a young boy perhaps should, but there's some pretty major stuff that he was kept totally in the dark about. Some of the things he doesn't know for certain, still doesn't know, you'd imagine could destroy a different type of person. You'll see what I mean later. But he is unbelievably resilient and resourceful, always has been. There was this one night when Milton, just 7 at the time, was looking after these toddlers when his mum didn't come home, which was not like her. The cupboard was bare, and Milton needed to get his hands on food for the 3 of them.
There's the porridge house downstairs that my mother always told me anytime I needed food, go down there and get it. But I think there's a part of me that just goes, hey, I can do this myself, type of thing. And, one of the little rituals that me and the other little sticky boys had was we'd make these little spears with nails inside of broomsticks, at the end of broomsticks. And we did these buckets. And we'd go out into the restaurants. Our knees, and it goes up to our thighs. And we're looking for frogs. And once we see a frog, we'll spear it. And after you get a speared frog, you throw that in the bucket that you carry and repeat until you fill that bucket up. And now you have a bucket full of frog legs that you go home and put on the grill and you cook. And with some rice that I got from downstairs, that's dinner for me. And I still have those days with just a high degree of fondness.
One of those nights, when his mum hadn't come home and wanted to go hunting for food, turned out to be disastrous for both of them.
There's a bang on the door, and it's the owner of the restaurant downstairs. She grabs me, takes me down, runs me through the alley to my mother's front. Because she's the boss. She's the mom's side. And I see crowd folks around the place. There's a Korean kind of paddy wagon, and they're escorting from my mother's bar inside that truck. My mother's in that truck, and as she pulls me on her shoulders, I can see my mother, and my mother is screaming at me, telling me, Milton, 2 weeks, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Stay home, eat downstairs when you need to, stay home, I'll be back in 2 weeks. Eat you for 2 weeks. To see my mother arrested, and she's telling me she's going to be gone for 2 weeks. And I didn't know at the time, what the circumstances behind her being arrested. But what I did know was that she's gone for 2 weeks.
And you're going to be home alone, aged 7.
Yeah.
We're going to break for the news. Stay with us. We'll be back with Milton very shortly. This is Outlook.
This is the BBC World Service and for World Club. This video speaks to the author, Abdul Razak Gul.
The sun with distant trees is open air, and made the houses shudder in hateful breath. Clouds of dust puffed up as infantry and footfall, and a hard-edged stillness lay over the daylight hours.
Abdul Razak Gul's Paradise tells the story of Yusuf, a boy in colonial East Africa, sold to pay his father's debt.
I originally wrote the place and the places that he goes through, the insides and the outside.
As Yusuf navigates a world of shifting moral and character, he dreams of something greater. The paradise is searching for. World Book. Today at GMT.
Next in Outlook, we're in South Korea with 7-year-old Milton left alone after his mum was jailed for 2 weeks for prostitution, leaving him to look after himself.
In my mind, I was just like, mom's always coming back to pick me up. So, milking. My mother always did what she said.
But because something's always happened, doesn't mean it always will. We're back after the BBC World Service News.
BBC News with Moira Alderson. India has attacked Pakistan and Pakistan at Kashmir, and Pakistan said it shot down several Indian fighter jets in worst fighting of more than 2 decades between the nuclear-armed enemies. Pakistan said at least 8 people were killed in its missile strikes. Delhi said its attack on what it described as terrorist infrastructure was a response to last month's militant attack in Indian-administered Kashmir, in which 26 civilians were killed. The United Nations has called on both sides for restraint. Washington and Beijing have announced their first high-level talks since President Trump's tariffs sparked a trade war. The US Treasury Secretary will meet China's Vice Premier in Switzerland on Friday. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, says 5 Venezuelan opposition figures besieged by security forces for over a year in Argentina's embassy in Caracas have been rescued. Mr. Rubio said the 5 were now safe on US soil. Oman says it's mediated a ceasefire between the United States and the Houthis in Yemen. Earlier, President Trump said Washington would stop bombing the group and that the Houthis would end attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. 4 former housekeepers who worked for the music legend Smokey Robinson have filed a lawsuit alleging that he subjected them to multiple incidents of sexual abuse. The 85-year-old singer has not yet responded. 16 people have been arrested in what officials say was one of the largest ever drug operations in the United States. Large amounts of fentanyl pills and powder were seized in 5 western states. Inter Milan have booked their place in the final of football's UEFA Champions League after overcoming Barcelona in a thrilling semi-final clash. They'll now take on either Arsenal or PSG to be crowned Europe's top team. BBC News. Hello, welcome back to Outlook. I'm Jennifer John. Next we'll be hearing from Pat Milton, the son of a South Korean sex worker and a black American soldier who'd been based in Korea after the war. Milton hadn't met him, but dreamed of going to the United States to find him. Life in South Korea was hard for Milton because of his skin, and hard for his mother, who returned to sex work to make ends meet. She'd leave Milton at home while she saw clients from the nearby US military base, and in going wild, fell in with a group of street kids and joined their gang as a slicky boy the name GIs gave to children who picked their pockets. When he was 7, Milton's mum was jailed for 2 weeks for prostitution, leaving him to look after himself. So what did you get up to for the next fortnight?
Oh, jeez, it was just like all the things that I was sneaking on now I can do without sneaking. When my mother was gone, I just had to run through with all the activities I was that I felt like I was doing.
How was it when she came back?
Changed because I think she made some adjustments, and when she got arrested, she started to take me to an orphanage and kind of park me there.
In advance of getting arrested?
Yeah,
So she would know there was going to be a raid or something, and she would pack you off to an orphanage so you were looked after while she was in jail.
exactly.
Milton adjusted to this new arrangement, and his mum was always back in 2 weeks, just like she promised. But because something's always happened, doesn't mean it will. And one day, when his mum took him to an unfamiliar orphanage, Milton sensed a change.
I just remember that day just being different. She was kind of coarse and and short and almost mean in the morning as we got up to prepare ourselves to go to take the long cab ride up to Orphanage. And I remember all the work in which normally we'd be in conversation, but she was just quiet. She was quiet and kind of distant and just kind of looking out into the landscape, passing landscape as we took this quiet cab ride to the orphanage. When we pulled up to this orphanage, I saw all these kids who were mixed, and that was new, that was different. I'm like, wow, these black Korean kids are white Korean kids, many like me, so that was different. And then when she dropped me off, she told me that she's going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to be back tomorrow to check on you. And what can I bring back for you? That was different. She never asked about that. And I remember just really being excited. And I said, there's a train set at the toy store that I always used to steal from. I said, you can put it in the window. I'd love that. And she said she was going to get it. I'm excited about seeing her the following day with that train set. That following day when she got in a taxi, I remember when I met her out front, the taxi door was left open that she came out of, and she's hugging me. I was screaming to see into the taxi to see if my train set was there. I didn't see the train set. And then she hugged me and said that I need you to be strong, and I'm not sure when the next time I'm going to be able to see you. But in my mind, I was just like in a bonds I was coming back. So no big deal. I might have a longer vacation here than normal. Yeah, no big deal. But that was the last time she got that cab. That was the last time that I saw her.
You really, as she said goodbye, she didn't say, we might not see each other again.
No. I was just always under the impression that she's going to come back eventually.
How long was it before you realised that your mum wasn't coming back to collect you?
And I almost kind of resist that notion of knowing that she wasn't coming back because my mother always did what she said.
Milton would have to fend for himself at the orphanage, but then he had practice at that.
There was a kid named Joseph, like me, but he was a couple of years older. And we had a little static between him and I. But then Joe and I, we ended up kind of becoming friends. So after probably being there about a good month, I see this big black car pull up. It looked like a spaceship because it was this big black Ford with all this chrome on it, and it sparkled like nothing that Korea had ever produced. And popping out on the driver's side was this man that looked like the man that I thought would be my father. Strong, black, square jaw, just like a superhero. And then out of the passenger side, this woman that steps out, this caramel skin, this beautiful afro, in this flowing dress. I might have been 8 years old, but I knew she was fine. She was gorgeous. And I was just like, oh my God, like, I want them to be my parents. I want him to be my father. I want her to be my mother. But Dad came out there that day to pick up the other kid, Joseph, because they had been adopting him for an entire year. So I see them getting out of the car. They're met by the founder of the orphanage, Father King, and they come meet him. Father King calls Joseph, and I'm like, this kid is being adopted, Joseph, and he's being adopted by them. So I throw down my bicycle. I make a beeline to the man, Captain Don Washington. I grab him around his leg, and I'm screaming, Apache, Apache. Father. And Father King finally pries me off of his leg. I get loose, I run to their car, jump in, and then lock all the doors. And every time they tried with their key to get in, I kept locking the doors as I'm in there screaming and crying for my life. And so, right then and there, they decide to take both of us kids home to see which kid fits better with the family.
Well, there you are, these two little boys desperate to be adopted, and effectively you're going to have to fight it out, aren't you? To be the best kid, to be the one who fits in,
Yeah.
who's going to get a home.
Yeah. The idea was, all right, let's find out which one fits in better with the family.
So were you on your very best behaviour?
I believe so. The strange thing was, I somehow knew kind of what the drill was.
The night before Milton and Joseph were due to learn their fate, Milton took action.
When the family woke up, I was gone. I had ran away. I had ran away because I didn't want to get taken back to the orphanage. Maybe they would have accused me. I wasn't going to let these people take me back to the orphanage and not accuse me. The military police found me asleep in a tube that was in the playground. And they grabbed my leg, pulled me out, and that's when my parents made the decision to adopt both of us properly. And that's how Joseph became my brother, and that's how Washington became my parents.
How did you feel when you heard that you were going to be adopted by an American couple?
I thought there was something right about it. I was elated to have like this American couple and this American family, kind of a family that I chose, because he looked like the father that I've always envisioned, and she was the most beautiful person that I've ever seen.
What about your Korean mum?
The first night in this new house, that was the first of probably a year and a half worth of trying to find myself to sleep every night, because I yearned for my mother. And I had dreams, these recurring dreams of me climbing over walls and wading through miles of rice paddies to find out how to get away.
Did you ever try to find her while you were still in Korea?
No, because I didn't have any means. I didn't know where the orphanage was, from where we were, it was probably a good 20 miles. And I didn't quite get there.
So when it came to leave Korea and go to America with your new family, the Washingtons, was there a moment of thinking that if I go, I will never find her?
Yeah, it was. But by that point, it was just an accepted casualty of the war, because being with my mother also meant being isolated. But being with this new family meant that I was not only going to have family now, a meal and a place to sleep and toys and like a regular kid, I was also getting to America, so I could plan the next one, which was to find my father. So I think I just chose the right one.
It's a lot of weight on an 8-year-old shoulders, isn't it?
I think so.
Well, let's get you to America. It's a land where the mountains are made of ice cream and the cities are made of gold and the cars are all flying. What was it actually like?
Yeah, so the first place that I lived in America was Lawton, Oklahoma. My father was reported to Fort Sill. There's Army base there in Lawton. And it had zero resemblance to the fantasy that I had in my head. But by that point, it just didn't matter. I was living kind of a normal childhood. It was just a good, wholesome upbringing. And with a really, really diverse set of kids, folks that I'm still friends with to this day. So it went a long way. I was kind of making forget about the days of Korea.
And he stayed. Now lives in New York and runs a fitness business. His brother Joseph works with him, lives close by. And yes, he did go looking for his biological dad.
3.5 years ago, through some forensic genealogy, I got a hit. I discovered that my biological father is from Louisiana. So that's what I knew now. But I'm going to keep digging, and I got a feeling that probably over the next few years that I'm going to get connected to my father's side of the family.
Milton has found another relative in America, a niece who amazingly knew Tom, Milton's older sister who we met in part 1.
And Tom said, I need to speak to Milton immediately. Hello?
This is Milton Allen. How are you, Tom? Yes, I am. Are you my sister?
You know, it was an incredible moment, because speaking to Tom about my memories and to have my memories validated, say, yep, that happened, yep, that's how it was. I couldn't ask for that.
Tom had news.
So my mother passed away 6 odd years ago. And she was always thinking of me.
Thinking of him, but not making contact.
I knew that they knew that I was here in the States, but almost needing to still continue to be separated. So I never got any overtures from my mother or Tom to try to find me. I'm easy to find. They're not so easy to find. But I understand that now.
I don't understand. What is the dynamic?
Well, you give up a child, and it's not proper for you as a mother then to reach back to that child and try to have some kind of relationship.
Do you
You
know?
know, it's just not.
Have you been able to establish whether your biological mum had ever planned to come back to the orphanage and collect you, or what she had intended in keeping you there?
Chances are, you know, that was it. She was dropping me off so I could have a better life and have a better chance at life. She held on to me longer than most, and she was right. This wasn't means to a better life. I'm all but sure that she dropped me off to never come back.
Are you glad she did it?
I am. You know, I love my life now. I think she knew me very well. But she knew that I was kind of the personality that if I had a shot, I would go with it. I never felt shit.
You're not sad you didn't see her again?
Of course I am, you know. Anybody who's severed from their mother, I think there's a hole in my heart that's always going to be there that I just have to accept. You know, sometimes I can't even describe the yearning. But that's a hole in my heart that I just have to live with. I have to live with it. The benefits of my first. There's no argument. There's nothing to debate. spend too much time with a whole lot of questions in the past. Because I'm not interested in the future.
Milton Washington is leaving to London in 2022. The producer was Roy Thomas, and Joe Fidgen, Vince Wilson.
BBC World Service. And now, witness history with me, Tash Fernandez.
It's Uncle Roger. Since my last visit, many people ask me, today I show you the Asian way. Uncle Roger has many white friends tell me they use saucepan. Saucepan? Hiya! World War II is over. Use technology. Proper Asian use rice cooker.
That was YouTuber and satirical comedian Nigel Owen, playing the character of Uncle Roger, who's professing his love for the automatic rice cooker, now used by millions around the world. So I'm taking you back to the moment that kitchen utensil was born and revolutionized rice cooking forever. It's 1955 and we're in Ehime, located southwest of Japan's main Honshu island, and the hunt for the perfect rice is underway.
This was an experiment to make a tasty rice. In Japan, there's a time where rice cooking master sees the only way.
That's Haijin Mamo. He's the youngest son of the man who invented the rice cooker, Yoshitade Minoru. He said that his dad's mission to invent the rice cooker came from trying to achieve a huge strategy. That means no heat up to the flame in the middle. Put the flame down and release a sizzling hot smoke. And that will create a
I used to be believe that we can make a delicious rice if we cook it on one side.
Yoshitade's pursuit of the rice cooker also stemmed from somewhere else. When World War II ended and the US forces withdrew, Yoshitade was having trouble selling his printing press. He started losing business. But luckily, he had made friends in other places. Now, Mr. Matsumoto didn't think that was going to lead to it. In fact, he Yoshitade project as a way of keeping him occupied. But what the men that dominated behind the lines instructed was just how well this rice cooker could be. Where to begin between two companies. So he turned to something he did.
Unfolding down his head.